to Deep Sleep Stories. If these stories have helped you through restless nights, please leave a review. Reviews are what help this podcast grow, reach more listeners, and stay alive. Without them, even something meaningful can slowly disappear. So if this show has brought you comfort, that small act truly helps keep it going. Now, settle in, and let's begin.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, where tonight you are invited to drift gently into the quiet shelter of a small bookshop in Barcelona while rain falls softly over the old stone streets. Let your body become still now, as though the evening itself has laid a warm hand upon your shoulder. Let your eyes grow heavy, and let the day begin to loosen from you thread by thread. There is nothing you need to carry into this story. No hurried thought, no unfinished task, no distant sound that needs your attention. Only the soft rhythm of your breathing and the hush of rain gathering somewhere far away. Breathe in slowly, as though you are drawing in the scent of wet stone, cedar shelves, and paper warmed by lamplight. Breathe out and allow your shoulders to fall. Let your hands rest. Let your jaw soften. Let your thoughts become like rainwater sliding down glass, clear and quiet, moving without effort. Outside, Barcelona is wrapped in a blue evening mist. The narrow lanes of the old city shine beneath the rain, each cobblestone holding a small reflection of amber windows and wrought iron balconies. The air smells of stone, orange peel, distant coffee, and the sea, though the sea is hidden behind streets and rooftops and the long, slow breathing of the city. Somewhere, a bicycle rolls carefully through a lane. Somewhere else, a cafe door opens and closes, releasing a brief murmur of voices before returning to silence. And in one small street, almost hidden between a flower shop and a doorway covered in climbing jasmine, there is a bookshop with a green-painted door. A brass bell hangs above it. The window is steamed at the edges from warmth inside, and in the center of the glass, a single lamp glows over a display of old books, their covers softened by years of hands and weather and quiet reading. For now, you may imagine standing before that window, safe from hurry, held by the sound of rain. You do not need to enter quickly. You may simply notice the drops tracing silver lines down the glass. You may notice the golden hush inside. And with each breath, you may feel yourself growing lighter, as though the rain is washing the day away, leaving only calm. Soon, the story will continue without needing anything from you. You may listen or drift or let the words become soft shapes at the edge of sleep. There is a traveler in this rainy city, and as she steps into the bookshop, you may rest more deeply, knowing the path ahead is gentle, warm, and unhurried. The traveler's name was Clara, though by the time evening settled over Barcelona, her name felt less important than the sound of rain on awnings and the soft golden glow waiting behind the green door. She had wandered the city all afternoon with no particular destination. That was how she liked to know a place. Not by chasing landmarks, but by letting the streets make small decisions for her. She had followed a cat through a square where plane trees shook rainwater from their leaves. She had paused beneath a balcony where laundry moved gently in the damp air, like pale flags. She had watched an old man arrange oranges in a wooden crate, turning each one until its brightest side faced the street. By twilight, the rain had deepened, not into a storm, but into a steady curtain that made the city feel private. The shops lowered their voices. The stones grew glossy. The lamps came on one by one, as if someone unseen were lighting candles for the evening. Clara turned down a narrow lane she had not noticed before. It curved slightly, so that she could not see where it ended. Water ran in thin silver streams along the edges of the paving stones. The buildings leaned close overhead, their shutters painted in quiet greens and blues, their balconies threaded with plants. At the far end of the lane, a warm square of light rested on the wet ground. As she approached, she saw the bookshop. There was no large sign, only the shape of an open book carved into a small wooden plaque beside the door. Beneath it, in faded lettering, was the shop's name, too worn by weather for Clara to read clearly, but the window spoke plainly enough. Inside were shelves from floor to ceiling, a ladder on a brass rail, a worn velvet chair, and stacks of books, arranged with the tender disorder of a place that trusted people to linger. Clara lifted her hand to the door. The bell gave a single soft note. Warmth met her first, then the scent of paper, dust, wax, rain-damp wool, and a little cinnamon. The shop was deeper than it looked from the street. Its front room opened into another, and that into a narrow hallway lined with shelves. Lamps stood in corners with amber shades. Small rugs softened the wooden floor. Somewhere in the back, a kettle murmured. Behind a counter sat an elderly woman with silver hair braided and pinned at the nape of her neck. She wore a dark cardigan and round spectacles, and she was repairing the spine of a blue book with a brush and a small pot of glue. She looked up, smiled, and did not ask Clara if she needed help. Instead, she said, "A good evening for paper?" Clara smiled back. "A perfect one." The woman nodded as though this answer confirmed something. "Then stay as long as the rain does." Clara removed her coat and hung it on a brass hook near the door. Rain tapped against the window behind her with patient fingertips. The whole shop seemed to breathe in time with it. She moved slowly at first, as people do in rooms where silence is cherished. The shelves were marked with handwritten labels: travel, poetry, maps, botanicals, forgotten languages, birds, dreams. The labels were not always practical, but they were beautiful in their own way, written in dark ink that had feathered slightly into thick cream paper. Near the window, Clara found a table of books about the city. There were old guides with fold-out maps, slim histories of neighborhoods, collections of photographs showing Barcelona before cars crowded its avenues, and little books of legends from the coast. She opened one and found a black and white picture of the same quarter where she now stood, only quieter, with horses in the street and women in long skirts crossing beneath umbrellas. Rain tapped the glass. A tram bell sounded faintly somewhere beyond the lane. The bookshop held the sound and softened it. Clara carried the book to the velvet chair by the window and sat down. The chair gave a faint sigh beneath her, as if pleased to be useful. From there she could see the rain sliding over the dark window and the blurred glow of the flower shop across the street. Inside, the books stood close around her, their spines lined like patient companions. The elderly woman came from behind the counter with a tray. "Tea," she said, "if you like." Clara accepted gratefully. The cup was small and white, painted with tiny blue leaves. Steam rose from it in fragrant curls. The tea tasted of chamomile, orange blossom, and something Clara could not quite name, something warm and round and faintly sweet, like sunlight remembered from another season. The woman set the tray on a low table and sat in a wooden chair nearby. She picked up her mending again, but after a while she glanced toward the window and said, "The rain changes the shop." Clara looked around. "How?" "It makes the shelves deeper," the woman said, "and the quiet wider. People choose different books when it rains." "What kind?" "Letters, diaries, fairy tales, books with houses in them, books with lanterns." Clara smiled. "And maps?" "Especially maps. Rain makes people dream of elsewhere, while also wanting very much to stay where they are." The sentence settled gently between them. Clara looked again at the book in her lap. The photograph on the open page showed a street lamp shining through fog. There was something comforting about seeing the city in another time, also damp, also glowing, as though rain had always known how to make Barcelona slow down. She turned a page, then another. The book told of hidden courtyards where lemon trees grew against old walls, of Roman stones beneath modern streets, of narrow staircases leading to rooms where musicians once practiced by candlelight. It told of craftsmen and sailors, printers and bakers, women who carried baskets to market before dawn, children who played in plazas beneath laundry lines and pigeons. But after several pages, Clara discovered something unusual. Tucked between two chapters was a folded sheet of paper, thin and soft with age. At first she thought it was a receipt left by some earlier reader. But when she unfolded it, she found a small map drawn in blue ink. It showed a maze of streets, a square marked with a fountain, and at the center of the map a tiny sketch of a bookshop window with a lamp. Beside it, someone had written in careful handwriting, "When it rains, the city remembers where it has hidden its quietest doors." Clara read the sentence twice. The elderly woman looked over, not with surprise, but with recognition. "You found one of the rain maps?" she said. "One of them?" They appear now and then, usually when the weather is patient enough." Clara waited, but the woman seemed content to let the explanation remain soft around the edges. The kettle murmured again from the back room. Rain continued its gentle work upon the glass. "What do they lead to?" Clara asked. The woman tilted her head. "Sometimes to a courtyard, sometimes to a memory, sometimes to a book you did not know you needed, but never to anything urgent. This reassured Clara more than any certainty could have done. She studied the map. The little drawing of the bookshop was clearly where she sat. A blue line curved out from it, through several narrow streets, into a square she'd passed earlier, then toward a mark like a small archway. But the rain beyond the window had thickened, and the shop was so warm. The woman seemed to understand. "There is no need to follow a rain map in the rain," she said. "It may also be read from a chair." Clara leaned back. That felt exactly right. So she held the map open on her lap and let her eyes travel along its blue lines while the shop around her became quieter and deeper. The lines seemed almost to shimmer in the lamplight, not brightly, not magically in any startling way, but gently, as ink sometimes appears to move when paper has absorbed the breath of many years. Her eyes followed the path from the bookshop to the small square, and as she looked, she imagined the square as it might be at that very moment. The fountain in the center would be catching raindrops, each drop making a ring within a ring. The old stone basin would hold leaves from nearby trees. Around the square, windows would shine above shuttered shops, and on one balcony perhaps a woman would be watering plants that did not need watering simply because she liked to stand in the rain. The blue line curved onward to an archway. Clara saw it in her mind, an arch in a wall so plain that most people would pass without noticing it. Beyond it might be a courtyard, paved in pale stone, with a lemon tree growing at the center. Rain would fall through the open sky and gather on the glossy leaves. Beneath the tree there might be a bench, and on that bench, a book wrapped in oilcloth to keep it dry. She smiled at the thought. The elderly woman's brush moved softly over the spine of the blue book. "What do you see?" she asked. "A courtyard," Clara said, "with a lemon tree." "A good sign." "Is it real?" The woman's eyes warmed behind her spectacles. In Barcelona, many things are real in layers. Clara accepted this. The city itself seemed made of layers, stone over stone, century over century, footsteps over footsteps, rain over everything. She folded the map and slipped it carefully back into the book, not because she was finished with it, but because it felt like something that wanted to rest. After a while, she rose and began to explore the deeper rooms of the shop. The second room was narrower, with shelves so tall that their tops disappeared into shadow. A rolling ladder waited along one wall. The labels here were more curious. Moonlit gardens, ships never launched, recipes from grandmothers, letters not sent. Clara trailed her fingers just above the spines without touching them, reading titles in several languages, some familiar, some not. In a corner stood a small desk with a green-shaded lamp. On it lay an open guest book. The pages were filled with names and notes left by visitors. Some were brief. "Thank you for the shelter. Found the poems I needed. Rain outside, peace inside." Others were longer, written in looping hands. describing how someone had entered for a minute and stayed until closing, or found a childhood book, or heard a song from the street that seemed to belong to a chapter they had just read. Clara turned a blank page, picked up the fountain pen beside the book, and wrote, "I came in from the rain and found the rain had come in too, but softly." She let the ink dry before moving on. Beyond the second room was a hallway just wide enough for one person, lined with books about music. The rain was quieter there, but she could hear another sound, faint and steady. At first she thought it was the building settling, but as she walked farther it became clear someone was playing a guitar in a room nearby. The notes were slow and unadorned. They drifted through the shelves like warm water. Not a performance exactly, more like a person remembering a tune for themselves. Each note appeared, lingered, and faded into the next, leaving behind a calm that seemed to widen the narrow hall. At the end of the hallway, Clara found a back room with a skylight. Rain scattered over the glass above, turning the room into a quiet lantern. There were plants here, ferns and trailing ivy, and a small round table set with another lamp. A young man sat near the far wall with a guitar on his knee, his dark hair falling forward as he played. He looked up when Clara entered, nodded kindly, and continued. She did not want to disturb him, so she settled at the little table and opened a book from the nearest shelf. It was a collection of lullabies from Mediterranean ports, translated into several languages. The pages held songs from islands and fishing villages, from harbors where mothers had sung to children while waiting for boats to return, from towns where the sea wind had carried melodies through shutters at night. Clara did not sing them. She simply read the words silently while the guitar moved around her and the rain moved over the skylight and the plants held their shining leaves in the lamplight. After some time, the young man stopped playing and let the last note fade. "My grandmother used to say," he said quietly, "that rain is the city turning pages." Clara looked up. "That sounds like something that belongs in this shop." He smiled. "Many things do." He placed the guitar in its case and stood. "The owner will close late tonight. She always does when it rains. There is bread in the kitchen, if she has not already told you." She offered tea. "Then bread will follow." He left with soft steps, and Clara remained in the back room for a little longer, looking up through the skylight. The rain made no pattern she could predict, yet it was soothing because it asked for no prediction. Drop after drop, touch after touch, 1,000 tiny arrivals that together became one calm sound. Eventually she returned toward the front of the shop. As she passed the hallway of music, she noticed a narrow shelf she had missed before. It was tucked low beneath the others close to the floor. The books there were small, bound in cloth, each one the size of her palm. There was no label. Clara knelt and drew out a volume the color of rain clouds. It had no title on the cover. Inside, the pages were filled with pressed leaves. Each leaf was mounted carefully and labeled in delicate handwriting. Plane tree, fig, olive, bay, lemon, cypress. but toward the middle of the book there was a page where the leaf had come loose and rested like a small green boat between the papers. Clara touched it gently. It was a lemon leaf, still faintly fragrant, though it must have been years old. As she lifted it, a folded note slipped from behind it and fell into her lap. She opened the note. For the one who finds the lemon leaf, sit near the window and listen for the rain that falls upward. Clara read the line with a quiet smile. She did not try to understand it too quickly. Some sentences in old bookshops are better when left to open slowly. She carried the little gray book back to the front room. The elderly woman was slicing bread at the counter now. Beside the loaf was a small dish of olive oil and a jar of honey. "You found the herbarium," the woman said, "and a note." "Ah." Clara waited, but again the woman only smiled. They ate in companionable quiet near the counter. The bread was dense and warm, with a crisp crust and a soft center. Clara dipped a piece in olive oil, then tried another with honey. The sweetness was gentle, floral, and pale, like morning caught in a jar. Outside, the rain softened to a fine mist, then gathered again, as if the clouds were breathing in and out above the city. After eating, Clara returned to the chair by the window, with the gray book and its lemon leaf. She sat exactly as the note had suggested, near the window, listening. At first she heard only the familiar downward rain, drops ticking against glass, water whispering in the gutter, the wet hush of wheels passing slowly over stones. But as she grew still, another sound seemed to appear beneath it, not separate from the rain, but hidden inside it. It was very faint, a rising sound, like droplets traveling upward through leaves, like the memory of rain returning to clouds, like the softest turning of pages from floor to ceiling. Clara closed her eyes. In that moment, the bookshop seemed to grow taller, though she did not move. She imagined all the books around her lifting their words like vapor, all the stories breathing upward, all the old ink releasing dreams gathered from readers who'd come in out of storms. The rain outside fell and the rain inside rose. Memory, scent, music, pages, tea steam, lamplight, the quiet gratitude of shelter. She opened her eyes slowly. Nothing had changed, and everything felt more tender. The elderly woman stood at the counter, wrapping the blue book she had repaired in brown paper. "You heard it?" she said. "I think so." "Then the shop has decided to remember you." Clara held the gray book gently. "Does it do that often?" "Often enough. Not with everyone, but with those who listen without trying to take anything away." The words rested in Clara like warm tea. The rain continued. The evening deepened. A few more visitors came and went. A young couple shook water from their umbrella and searched for cookbooks. A woman with silver rings bought a volume of poems and tucked it inside her coat. A boy came in with his father and chose a book about dragons, though he pretended not to be too excited. Each time the bell rang, the shop welcomed the sound and then folded back into quiet. Clara stayed. She read a page from the herbarium, then a poem from a green book, then the first paragraph of a novel whose opening described a ship leaving harbor at dawn. She did not feel the need to finish anything. In the bookshop, beginnings were enough. A first line could be a room, a pressed leaf could be a path, a map could be followed without leaving one's chair. At some point, the elderly woman lit another lamp. The new light made the shelves glow more deeply. Shadows gathered kindly in the corners. The rain blurred the window until the outside world became a watercolor of amber and blue. "Would you like to see the reading room upstairs?" the woman asked. Clara looked toward the back of the shop. "There is an upstairs?" "There is when it rains." This too Clara accepted. The woman led her through the second room to a staircase hidden behind a curtain. The stairs were narrow and curved, their wooden steps worn in the center by many feet. As they climbed, the sounds of the shop below became softer, and the rain seemed to come closer, brushing against the roof and walls. At the top was a small attic room with sloping ceilings and 2 round windows. Shelves lined the lower walls. Cushions covered the floor. A low table held a lantern, a bowl of dried lavender, and a stack of blankets folded with care. The windows looked over the rooftops of Barcelona, their tiles dark and shining under rain. Chimneys rose like quiet sentinels. Farther away, beyond the softened shapes of buildings, Clara could see the faint glow of the city stretching toward the hidden sea. "This is where the rain is best heard," the woman said. Clara stepped inside. The room smelled of lavender and old wood. Rain pattered close overhead, more intimate than before, as though the clouds had lowered themselves to speak softly to the roof. The elderly woman chose a blanket from the stack and placed it over Clara's shoulders. "Stay until you are ready," she said. "The stairs will find you when it is time to go down." Then she left Clara alone in the attic reading room. Clara settled onto the cushions near one of the round windows. The blanket was heavy and warm. She watched rain bead on the glass, gather and slide away. Across the rooftops, lights glowed in other windows. Behind each one, she imagined quiet lives. Someone stirring soup, someone folding laundry, someone reading at a kitchen table, someone humming to a sleepy child. She felt for a moment not separate from any of them. The rain joined the city together. It touched every roof, every balcony, every awning, every quiet street. It made one soft sound out of many surfaces, one lullaby out of stone and glass and leaf and tile. On the low table beside her was a book, bound in faded gold cloth. She opened it. The pages were blank, not empty exactly. Waiting. Clara ran her hand above the paper. She thought of the rain map, the lemon leaf, the upward rain, the woman at the counter, the guitar, the tea, the bread, the warm chair by the window. She thought of how the best places did not demand to be understood. They simply offered shelter, and in that shelter a person could hear herself becoming quiet. The blank page shimmered faintly. Words appeared, but only a few. She read them in silence. Once, on a rainy evening in Barcelona, a traveler entered a bookshop and found that every shelf was a doorway, every doorway was a pause, and every pause was a place to rest. Then the words faded, leaving the page blank once more. Clara was not startled. The room was too peaceful for surprise. She closed the book and rested her hand on its cover in gratitude. Outside, the rain began to lighten, not stop, but soften. The drops grew farther apart. The rooftops shone. Somewhere below, the bell over the shop door rang once, then became still. Clara's eyelids grew heavy. She leaned against a cushion and let her gaze drift across the round window. The city beyond it became blurred and gentle. The lamps were stars lowered close to earth. The chimneys were shadows in a dream. The rain was a voice saying slowly, "There is time, there is time, there is time." She did not know whether she slept. Perhaps she only drifted in that tender place between waking and dreaming, where thoughts become pictures and pictures become feelings. She saw the lemon tree in the hidden courtyard. She saw the fountain catching rings of rain. She saw blue lines on an old map, rearranging themselves into rivers, then into sentences, then into threads of light that wound through the city and returned to the green door of the bookshop. When she opened her eyes, the lantern still glowed on the low table. The blanket still rested around her shoulders. The rain had become a whisper. The staircase was waiting. Clara descended slowly, one hand on the smooth wooden rail. Downstairs, the shop was nearly empty. The elderly woman stood by the door, looking out at the lane. The flower shop across the street had closed, but a few roses remained in buckets beneath its awning, shining with rain. "It is late," the woman said gently, though not as a warning. Clara returned the gray book to its low shelf. She slipped the lemon leaf back between its pages, where another listener might someday find it. Then she placed the city book with the rain map back on the table near the window. "Thank you," she said. The woman nodded. "Come again when the weather invites you." Clara put on her coat. It was dry now, warmed by the bookshop air. At the door, she paused and looked back. The shelves stood quietly in the lamplight. The velvet chair waited beside the rain-streaked window. The counter smelled faintly of bread and honey. Nothing asked her to stay, and yet everything seemed to bless her leaving. The bell gave its soft note as she stepped outside. The lane was cool and shining. The rain had thinned to mist, floating in the lamplight like silver dust. Clara walked slowly, not because she was lost, but because there was no need to hurry. The city had become a book she could read with her feet. One wet stone, then another. One glowing window, then another. One breath, then another. At the corner, she turned back. The green door was still there. The window still glowed, but already the shop seemed tucked more deeply into the street, as though it were becoming a memory while remaining perfectly real. Clara smiled and continued through the quiet rain. And now the story begins to soften, as all gentle evenings do. The bookshop rests behind its green door. The lamps burn low. The shelves settle into darkness, holding their maps, their poems, their leaves, their little folded notes. The kettle cools. The velvet chair waits beneath the window, listening to the last drops of rain. Barcelona sleeps under a silver veil. Water gathers along the edges of rooftops and slips softly into the night. The hidden courtyard is quiet. The lemon tree holds rain on its leaves. The fountain dreams in circles, and you may rest now too. There is nothing more to follow, nothing more to solve. Only the hush of rain, the warmth of lamplight, the scent of paper, and the deep comfort of being sheltered. Let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts drift down like leaves on water. Let the book close gently. Let the city fade into blue. The rain is soft. The room is warm. You are safe. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.